What we try to do with this semester is kind of keep the idea of leadership building and working together as a team. And we started that back in orientation, if you guys remember. I touched on it in the last submeeting. We talked about how we work as a team and how everybody in the Student Center is really connected, and how we as employees of the Student Center, we have to work together. And we carried that on with our first SELC workshop, which was about communication within a group and how we interact with each other, and what is a professional way to approach each other. And we're going to follow up with that with group dynamics. And already, we can pick apart by how people are sitting, where the group dynamics are, and and how important that is, and understanding group dynamics and what we can do with that information is very important. And I will not do an introduction because I can't do it justice. So I will pass it over, and I will let you take care of it yourself.
All right. Welcome. My name is Deepa Chaudhary, and I'm a professor in the Department of Leadership and Counseling. I shouldn't be here. I'm on sabbatical, but oh well. I'm leaving the country in 2 weeks, but I haven't left yet, so I'm sure I'll do it. I teach counseling. I teach multicultural counseling. I teach group process and advanced group counseling. So that's where I'm going to be coming from. But I want to make it as useful to you as possible, and so let me get a sense of sort of who you are and what you want. If you can go around table by table and tell me just your name and one word that describes how you are in groups. And whichever table would like to start.
I'll start.
Okay. Caitlin?
Someone go there.
No, go ahead.
Okay, so my name is Caitlin.
Okay, leader. Okay, contributor.
My name is Travis. I go with it.
My name is Fred. I would say personal.
Okay.
I'm Vince from Funds.
And Jared, and I support.
Okay. Actually, it's quiet, but you started. Okay. A quiet initiator.
My name is Nikita.
Active. Okay.
I'm a Purva. I'm a computer.
Okay.
I'm Nemo. I'm
Okay. Which table?
I'm Veronica, and I'm a contributor.
Okay.
Justin and Ashley.
I'm Taylor, and
You have cauliflower now.
oh yeah, I have cauliflower, but I guess I can direct the group
Okay.
behind the scenes.
Okay.
I'm Marquez, and I'm entertainment.
Okay.
I'm the control freak.
Kyle. Okay.
I'm Janika, I'm the leader.
I'm Melissa. I would be the actor. I'm Jordan. I would like to consider myself a leader, but when all else fails, I'm just kind of along for the ride.
Okay.
I'm Tara. I'm passive.
Okay. Active. Okay. If you join a table that's already gone, you're going to have to say your name in one word to describe how you are in groups. We'll come back to you.
I'm Maris, I'm the contributor.
Okay.
I'm Sultan, I'm the quit.
The what?
The quitter.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
He's also the liar.
My name's Seth. I guess initiative.
Okay.
My name is Nate, and I would say I would be the
coordinator.
My name is John, and I could say I'm not a people person. I'm more private, but yeah,
Not a people person.
not so much.
So what are you?
I'm an observer, if you want to call it that.
My name is Donovan, and I am a contributor.
My name's Phil. I'm cooperative.
My name is Ashley and I'm helpful.
My name's Chelsea, and I'd be like the organizer, I guess.
I'm the boss.
Okay.
I'm Ben. I'm the devil's advocate.
I'm Chris, I'm the leader. I'm Jordan, I'm the slacker.
I'm Omar, I'm just go with it. I'm David, I'm the guy.
That's good, we're off the juice.
And so, in a group of guys, then what role do you play? How would you describe yourself? One of them?
Yeah.
He's that guy.
Yeah, that guy.
And Christina, leader and name and
Megan, AV.
anybody else?
There's somebody that walked in.
Yes. Name and how do you describe, one word to describe how you are in groups.
Silas and I'm the thinker.
Behind the camera?
I'm Michael, and I'm sarcastic observer.
Getting brownies. Name and one word you describe yourself in groups with. Your name.
Carrie.
Carrie. And one word of how you would describe yourself in groups.
Leader?
Anybody we missed? Okay. So, what I want to do with this, and partly this comes out of my background in counseling, is I'd like you, as we go through this, we're going to do an exercise. I want you to sort of let yourself get into it, sort of fully participate, but at the same time watch yourself and others in your group. One of the things that happens in groups, because as human beings, we're social beings, is that we're always, by and large, in groups. I mean, you start off in the most primary group, that is your family, and you stay in groups throughout your life. Whether you think of yourself as a people person or not, by and large, we live in groups. Because in this interconnected world, there's no way to not. The pieces, though, that you have to consider is we often, in groups, get seduced by content. What's happening, as opposed to how it's happening. And so what I want to do today is have you take a look at how stuff happens in groups, because the more you understand the process, you can work with the process. Because the content will also shift and change depending on the current situation. And if you focus on the content, you lose the how of things. And those of you who sort of go with the flow, you get swept along in the current without a lot of control. So anybody who wants to have some control or to lead or to in any way direct or facilitate or just have a good experience in groups, you got to pay attention to how stuff is happening. Okay, there are a couple of seats over here. Morning. So what I'm going to start with is have you do an activity, and I'm going to pass out, I guess, sufficient sheets for each table. You'll have to share the first part of group work. So, and I'll explain the activity. It's a simulated exercise. Oh, yeah. Thanks. And so the idea is that at your table, those of you who are at your table have all gone to the beach together. It's not fall and a cold and windy, rainy day out. It's warm, it's like 85 degrees, you're at the beach, it's wonderful. You're walking along as a group, kicking the sand, and one of you picks up an old rusted lamp. One of you, maybe one of the leaders in the group, maybe somebody's just going with the flow, maybe just one of the guys, picks it up and rubs it. And ever after, because the whole genie comes out, you know that you dropped the lamp. But the genie's out already, and none of you can remember who actually rubbed the lamp. So the genie comes out, and traditionally, like genies do say, I'm here to offer you 3 wishes. Who rubbed the lamp? And you all go. So of course, many people are going, me, and somebody else going, no, not you. Must be me. Well, the genie goes, I'm sorry, rules are rules. I can't give group wishes. But since all of you are in a group, I'll give you 15 minutes to decide. You still get 3 wishes, but no group wishes. You cannot use a wish and say, we wish for 15 wishes, or being greedy, 1,000,000 wishes, or you can't do that. You cannot wish that each person in the group gets something. So you cannot wish that, I wish that we would all get $1 million each. Okay? So no group wishes, no one wish used to serve everybody in the group. You only get 3 wishes, and the genie says you get 15 minutes, and if you haven't decided by 15 minutes, nobody gets any wishes. So right now, you've got 15 minutes as a group to figure out what your 3 wishes are going to be. You have your 3 wishes. All right, I'm going to start with first question before you tell me your wishes. Are you all in agreement? Okay, what are your 3 wishes? You wish for 7 billion. People, listen up, because you can get some great strategies from somewhere else. $7 billion? 7. There's a reason for that number, isn't it? They're going to trust you to parcel it out afterwards. Ha! Okay, $7 billion. What's the next wish?
I wish I could find the cure for cancer.
The cure for cancer and AIDS, and then you're going to...
Then I would cure that thing called trust.
Okay, and the third wish?
Guys, listen up.
The genie's going, why do you need a time machine? I could just transport you wherever you want one time.
Because we just wanted to share it.
Oh, see, no sharing. What's the third wish?
Okay, it's a good wish that each term one employee looks like school.
Okay.
The perfect one was that one.
Okay, all right. And, okay, so the 3 wishes are individual wishes with, I don't know, some binding agreement afterwards that they're going to share. Okay. This group, you had. I'm sorry. Speak up.
Erase the world's death, world peace, and free education.
Erase world death, like all around the world?
All countries.
Oh, so come back to 0?
Yeah.
Okay.
And world peace.
World peace? Free education. For everybody. The genie kind of sighs really loudly and goes, I'll have no magic left after all that, but okay. All right.
We had $8 billion.
$8 billion, another significant number, yes.
World peace and cure for cancer.
cure for
World
cancer.
peace and the cure for cancer. Okay. Group there. Are you all in agreement?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, like, we got a couple. We got 3 wishes. They are for one person, because we're applying to one person, to whoever speaks up first. John, this guy right here. They're to have infinite knowledge.
John will have infinite knowledge.
Yes, and then John will also have eternal and a healthy life.
Not necessarily eternal.
Not necessarily eternal, but a healthy life.
Like live to 100 in great health.
100 in great health.
And the third, that is, does say within a group there might be distrust. This is conditional on the condition of death. I am required to teach everyone else the knowledge that I contain.
That's not a wish. You can't wish that you be required.
Yes.
Well, we're gonna put happiness under that, eternal happiness onto John as well.
Okay, so John gets infinite knowledge plus eternal happiness. Really, those two.
Well,
go together.
because if he has eternal or like infinite knowledge, and he's happy about living the long time that he does, he will teach all of us, and thus we all gain knowledge.
It doesn't have to be me. It could be anyone else.
Well, yeah. So then, at the end of it, after I grant those wishes, John might just disappear in a poof and no longer exist because those are contradictory, often contradictory things. But that's all right. Okay, so you're hoping that that'll pass around. Not the long life, though.
What's that?
The long life and health. How's John going to pass that?
How?
Yeah.
He won't.
Oh, he won't.
But he'll pass his knowledge on to.
Oh, okay. I hope. All right, that's good.
We decided for our first wish, we're going to wish that Omar himself would be look at the long-term.
Remember that you can't wish for more wishes.
We're not wishing for more wishes. We're wishing for him to be a genius. That's an indirect way of wishing for more. So we're within the bounds there. Second, we wish for him to have a comfortable living space within his land.
You mean Omar wishes because you can't wish for him.
Yes, Omar wishes for comfortable living space within his land. And third, we wish for $15.
And what?
$15.
Omar, you wish for $15? And all of you are in agreement. Okay. I'm going to come back and ask you to explain and the comfortable living space. But you all are very unselfish people, other than.
Don't worry.
Okay. This table. What did you? Sure. Yeah.
Okay. We agree with genius.
Okay, wait. Who's going to be the genius? Can I say? You're going to be the genius?
Nemo wanted to be a genius.
Okay. So you're wishing.
I called him genius. No, I got another ideas.
It's not real life. Just be a genius.
I want to own Apple company, Microsoft company, and I will hire her as a CEO.
You can't be telling me that because I'll go, sorry, no sharing. Are you wishing that you're going to be a genius?
Yeah.
Yes. You agree. Okay. Viva's going to be a genius. What's the next wish?
Ashley is going to have.
I need somebody from CSI. CSI.
Have you ever seen Members?
Yeah.
The movie Jensen?
Yeah. Oh, you're going to do that? Yeah. And what about that opposing agency that like goes after them and kills the president? Okay. Okay. So Ashley's going to have the ability to jump. And okay.
And okay.
Third wish.
Okay. To do music.
Do music how?
Like anything from producing, making beats, singing, rapping.
Okay. So as a PD, I'm a little confused. Do you want the talent to do it?
Okay.
Or the success of actually doing it?
Both.
Is that two wishes? Alright. Okay. Alright, so now I'd like each of you sort of across tables. One, I want you to notice something. So this was a simulation. You're all pretty grown up. You know that there are no genies. You weren't walking on the beach. It's a cold day outside. And yes, none of you, by and large, the piece around groups is that it had to be something that worked for everybody. And at no point did the table just go, this is not real, it doesn't matter. You, pick something. Who cares? It's not going to happen anywhere. No, you went around and around, and I sort of was walking around and going, okay, how? Basically, what you were asking each other was, how can we do this so that we all get something out of it? Sometimes you're depending on trust that you're going to share. Sometimes you're depending that one person, once they have enough knowledge or happiness or whatever, or magic powers, that they're going to pass them along, right? So part of group process then, ultimately does get based on trust. But also notice that even just in a simulation game, it's not enough to just go, I'm just going to go get more brownies, you do whatever you want, and I'll just go along with it. Now, why do you think this engaged you sufficiently? What was it about the group piece? What did you notice? What are some observations on how you did what you did? You all came up with an answer that forfeited your wishes. So how did you do it? Not what did you do, but how did you do it? Compromise. So what did that mean?
Someone came up with an idea, we would give and take until we could agree on something.
Okay, so sort of adapting and negotiating with each other. What else?
Voting.
Voting, okay. So sort of using the democratic process and going, enough of us want this, so let's go with it. Okay. What else? What are some other ways you did what you did? All right. Did you say you were a leader?
Yeah.
Ah. So how did you just decide?
We threw out the idea and kind of ran with
Who's
whatever
we?
sounded best.
Who's we?
It was actually pretty
What
much a
happened
group
was,
effort.
it was a group effort, but somebody would throw out an idea, and then the group itself would modify that idea to fit everybody else's needs.
Yeah.
Kind of personal.
Yeah.
And then we'd all go to agree on that modified idea, and that came up with a general consensus of them being a genie, gracious living, and $15.
So okay, I'm gonna come back to the $50. I think everybody would want to know about that. But so you needed somebody to throw out something. Somebody in the group had to start with an idea, and whether you negotiated from there, you voted on it, you played with the idea, and then you decided. But you needed to start with some individual contribution. Okay. Any other thoughts on how did you do what you did? Any other thoughts on how you did what you did?
Go ahead, John. Go ahead, John.
I like my only rationale while I was thinking is I'm observing the group. I was considering strengths as well as weaknesses, counterbalancing that with the thought that of what could possibly benefit everyone in the group and beyond to the greatest magnitude possible. That's all.
So part of it was having to think beyond yourself.
Exactly.
If you're going to work successfully in groups, to sort of think larger than your own self. And I noticed, for instance, in this group, one of the things somebody said at one point was, well, what do people want? let's go around and talk about what would you wish for as a way to begin to get that larger than oneself. Because you might know what you want, but you don't know what everybody else wants. So to find a common ground, you got to start with that. And so there are different ways of getting to that. Absolutely. What were some things that made it hard? What were obstacles, challenges that came up in sort of letting this go smoother? Yeah.
This group says I was hard because I threw out every negative thing that could possibly happen with the objective, did you think it all the way
After
through?
she saw that we
But
had a
if
team,
I remember,
she came in.
if I remember, your name was?
Ben.
Was he the devil's advocate?
Yes, it was.
Ah, so you played that role instead. So part of it, to come up with a good idea, though, often needs someone critiquing, which is a role that is useful in groups. During the group itself, people might not like you very much because you're shooting down ideas and you're saying, well, have you thought this through or what's wrong with this? But that's what actually is the refining process down the road. Sure. What else? What else sort of got difficult?
I think sometimes you get, and I know this group, but they're not, the person's not freaking out. You get one or two people in a group that just sit there and kind of go along. Yet they may have great ideas, so whoever takes that facilitator has to kind of make sure they draw those people in that aren't speaking because their ideas are valid, even if they aren't the type of person that can speak out.
Okay. So sometimes you need to draw on people more, but also people's own investment and engagement in a group goes in and out. You know, you're like really in there, and then after a while you're like, I need more chocolate. Right? So you get up and leave, you go get some more brownies, or if you're feeling healthy, something else. So that's the other piece that you have to notice, that engagement and involvement, you may have your own expectations, it's not going to be what's true for everybody else. Yeah? And so part of being the irritating part sometimes of working well in groups is having to let yourself notice everybody else's flow as well. And if you're really task-oriented and controlling and leading and directing, partly what you might want to do is just, let's make a decision. Because this is annoying. And yet, it's not going to be really possible to do in situations where you need a group consensus. Any other things that got in the way, that made that challenging or difficult? Yeah.
Finding what's appropriate to say out loud. Some of ours were jokes, but we had to kind of edit them.
Right, censorship, yes. But the process of using humor, did that make it difficult, or did it actually let it? Okay, so sometimes it got you off track.
It kept us building until it was crazy big.
Okay, so when it went off too far off the rails, then you weren't able to sort of do the task.
But it also let us get out of the way and we all.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. And anybody else sort of found humor positive, negative? No? The rest of you never use humor at all? Yeah.
We suggested the Deathly Hallows from the Harry Potter book.
Okay. And did that get sort of shot down and not? Yeah. Yeah. That was an asset to the thinking, or it was?
Wish for more brownies.
And
No brownies so far.
yeah, sorry, I'm just not that powerful as Jeannie. After world peace and free education, I'm kind of out there. Okay. All right. So, if you don't mind, I'm going to, at this point, just go through the PowerPoint. And it is academic. I'm a professor, you know. But I'll try not to sort of focus on it. What I want to do is constantly related to what you're working with. Okay? And at any point, stop me, ask questions, and so on. Are you stretching? Okay, so group dynamics. Let's start. I've got. I'm sorry, I don't know your name. Cindy. Cindy made extra copies, so there are copies for everybody. So all of this is on the PowerPoint. So if there aren't enough more, we'll come around. So the group dynamics is this kind of a little complicated term that both the process of what happens, of how groups interact, as well as the structure that emerges. And the structure that emerges are things like how you name yourself and your participation in the group as a leader, as active, as contributors, as passive, as going with the flow. Those are the things that sort of are the roles you take on. I was a little unfair when I asked you to describe how you were in groups with one word. Because the truth is that across groups, we are different. And you can just think about that. Thanksgiving's coming up. How many of you around the Thanksgiving family table are the way you are right now? Yeah? Pretty much the same word you used before, you would use it. Yeah?
Oh, I heard the point of the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay, what was the question again? I hear people talking.
Oh, okay.
I think I know what you're talking about, but I want to hear you.
In that case, yes.
The question was, are you the word you use to describe how you are in groups? Is that the same word you would use to say describe how you are sitting at the family Thanksgiving table?
No.
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 Okay. Have you changed or what's changed?
The environment changed.
Okay. And the group you're with?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So essentially what happens, and families, by the way, are a whole different thing. I teach couple and family counseling, so it's like a particularly potent form of group work. But the roles you take on in your family sort of origin, and then your current families, as if you are old enough to sort of develop new families, it's all around that negotiating, that compromising, that interacting, and how you perceive group involvement. So things like when you all came into the room and sort of how you were deciding which table to sit at, who to sit with, how close you felt to people, if you moved your chair out a little bit, if your chair was closer, how you made all those decisions. That's part of group process. How you deal with disagreement. One of the things I gave you in this scenario was essentially set up for some disagreement to have to happen, right? Somebody's going to have an idea that somebody else is not going to like. You're going to have to negotiate around whose wish gets to be the group wish. So part of it is that very much part of group dynamics is the conflict. And conflict is an inevitable part of groups. The issue is just how you work with it. Whether it happens or not is not a question. It will always happen because you're a group. You're a number of people who come together, each with your own perspectives and places that you take on. The group leader, whoever the group leader is, and so those of you who named yourself as the leader, that's an ambiguous term because depending on the group, you may or may not be. It's not possible to be the leader in every group, and you wouldn't want to. Because think about it. Think about if you're getting on the bus. Do you really want to be the leader in that group, or do you want to just sit down, put your bag down, and just get to where you're going? Groups are all the time in our lives, and what role we take on. So sometimes we want to be passive. Even though we may think of our personality as a leadership personality, there are some groups we don't want to be a leader in. Some groups, because we are passionate about the goals of the group or what the group is doing, we do want to lead because we want to direct it. We want to shape the the direction of the group, and so we do want to lead. And so your investment will do that. The piece, though, that you have to always remember is that a group will always outnumber one person. No group leader is more powerful than the group. So, totally authoritarian leaders who want to go, this is it, I just want to decide and all of you just fall in line. Well, there are certain structures in society that go along with that. In the military, for instance, you have a chain of command, you have a hierarchy for particular reasons, because often in situations where you have to do life and death decisions, a command is given and people have to obey. On the other hand, most of the groups in our lives, usually we're not in those kind of situations, and you get some pushback if you sort of start, kind of going, I have a 6-year-old son, and there are times when I'm thinking, I'm the adult, I get to say exactly what's going to happen. Not so much. I get pushed back in all kinds of ways that I did not necessarily expect. Okay, the piece is often when we go into groups, we think we're going to do this, and then this is going to happen, and this is going to happen. It doesn't work like that, A to B to C to D. Often, it's circular, and you can't tell when something started. So for instance, in a group where humor begins to be a part of the process, it'll be very hard to figure out exactly when that started and how the process went, because it's circular causality. In a group where it went a different way, where people got a little angry or disagreeable, again, you're never going to be able to pinpoint exactly when something happened, because even if you say, well, it was when so-and-so said this, well, what were the circumstances that allowed that to occur, to arise? For instance, talking about how you decide what's appropriate to share. You're using some kind of determination. Within each group, though, every member has their own read on what's happening, their own responses and sort of understandings of what's happening. And then that becomes a group focus. Groups go through stages. I gave you 15 minutes because you need to experience group dynamics to evolve. Needs a little bit of time. And typically groups go through a set of stages, and some of them can be really short and some of them can be really long. And one way to sort of think about them is norming. That is, when a group first comes together, they've got a task to do or a process to go through. They're relatively polite. So they do the normal things. They sort of do things like, what's your name? Or how's this going? Or what's the weather? It's the norming. Moving, as people get a little more comfortable, you then go into what's called forming, beginning to make alliances, beginning to figure out who's thinking like you, who's not thinking like you, who can you talk with, who are you comfortable with, those kinds of pieces. And then you get into storming. That's the conflict stage where people become comfortable enough to disagree with each other. How the conflict is handled, because there are groups that fall apart if the conflict is too much, will decide whether the group goes to the next stage, which is called performing, where you can actually get the task done. It doesn't mean that conflict is over, but you figured out a process to handle conflict without falling apart. Now, it doesn't have to be a healthy or functional process. It could be that the way conflict got decided was somebody said, I can't believe you said that. And the person who said that kind of goes, oh, guess we're not supposed to say this kind of stuff here. And so you sort of shut down. And so that's how that group decided to handle conflict, by shutting it down. Their performing may probably not be that good, because if there's a really bad idea, nobody's going to disagree with it. So their final performance is not going to be that great, but they still went through the conflict. So however you do it, you'll go through the stages. Now, notice that interaction patterns can be verbal and nonverbal. And for a lot of you, sometimes I wonder, do you know that you are observed all the time? And remember back to when you were like, some of you are teenagers, but remember back to when you were really teenagers, like sort of 14, 15, and it felt like being on stage all the time? Well, actually, that's true. It's just that it's not as important as it felt when you were 14, 15 to sort of be perfect. And always failing to achieve that standard, of course, that when you're 14. But in a group, people may not consciously go, oh, that person isn't into this. But we pick up nonverbal signals just as much. And by the way, that's 70% of communication, the nonverbal. So what you're doing with your body in groups is sending very strong messages that can often overwhelm, outshout what you're saying. So you might be saying, I'm just going with the flow here, whatever you want. But if your nonverbals is saying, I am in total disagreement with what's happening here, that's going to be louder than what you're saying. So if you want to be effective in groups, one of the things you want to pay attention to is that there's congruence between what you're saying with your body and what you're saying out loud. Because when people read you as congruent, they're going to give you more credibility. And you're going to be heard more. Okay? The family of origin stuff, by and large, not in 15-minute groups like this. Usually, when you're working full-time, by the way, someplace, 8 hours a day, 40-odd hours a week, the workplace becomes another family. And you have fights with family like you have fights in your own family. But part of those fights and conflicts and reactions that you have among groups where you spend a lot of time is going to be a lot reminiscent of your family of origin. So this is where that's tough. If you were the oldest child in your family and you were used to taking care of everything and being the boss and being responsible, guess what you're going to do in groups that are long-term groups that you're part of? You're going to try and control and boss everybody around, which will be fine, except that there will be middle children and youngest children in that group who will go, and who made you the boss? Because they're reacting to their own family of origin stuff. So that stuff is coming up. So there are triggers, and you want to notice your triggers and what feels familiar. Norms, and all of you in your groups, by the way, just in 15 minutes, establish norms of how you're going to talk, of how you're going to agree, how you're going to disagree with each other. In some groups, open disagreement was the plan. In other groups, people negotiated and compromised a lot more. But groups, sort of, each of them had their norms. Now, groups can be obstructing the group process, criticizing, shutting down conflict, going completely off the rails. One joke leads to another, so you're talking about pink giraffes in Kenya, and you're not in the room at all because it's more comfortable to do that. Sometimes demanding that everybody group think, everybody has to think the same way. Sometimes competing. There are too many leaders and not enough people who are willing to also contribute in other ways. And then helpful norms include sort of staying in the room, being present, allowing for negative feelings, not taking it too personally, not reacting out of your own past. And then often being observant of group process, just so that sometimes you can get out of the content of what's happening, maybe thinking about why is this happening. So you're sitting there getting all triggered because every time you say something, it's like somebody else in the group just shuts you down, just smacks you down verbally, and you're like, what is wrong with, like, what's going on here? If you can take a moment and sort of step back and look at the process, maybe you can notice that you are only commenting on a particular type of issue, and that's what's triggering the other person too. And if you switched either your delivery, your presentation, or what you comment on, you might avoid or sidestep the conflictual encounter. So some of the things are sort of, if you can step back and observe the group process, you might be able to use it more effectively. And essentially, you know, talking about group roles, all of you, when you did your opening kind of descriptor, framed into one of these group roles. Sociable roles, those are people who participate, who contribute, who basically work on the relational piece. They harmonize, they check in with each other, they notice. Structural roles are group of members who sort of go, well, we're here to do this, so let's do it, right? So organizations function, so they'll go, okay, they're the ones who initiate. So even if you think you're a silent person, if you're the person who, when there's a group task, goes, okay, I'll start. That's a structural role that you take on. Divergent roles, very important, are members who deliberately, constantly step away from the group think. So their role is to be divergent, to be the devil's advocate, to be the critical thinker, to be the sarcastic observer, those kinds of things. And those oppositional points of view are really helpful if the group can tolerate it. And then finally, cautionary roles are those who essentially withhold commitment. They're kind of there, but they're kind of like a tourist. They're not sure, am I here, am I not here? Do I want to be, oh, well, I'll put one foot in. No, not yet. And so cautionary roles, when members play those kinds of roles, those are some of the hardest. Because if you've got everybody else who's like going full force, and then you've got, say, a bunch of people in the group who you don't really know if they're there or not. And those of you who have classes and group tasks and your teamwork in your classes, and you know, you try and sort of parcel out work, and then there's somebody you go, oh, I don't know if they're even going to do it. Right? So it's a trust issue. The piece is that members who are cautionary, who are sort of not committed, just there, just watching, observing, passive, they've got trust issues too. They're not sure whether they can trust the group enough to commit. But their behavior in the group that's distrustful in turn leads to distrust of them and their participation in the group. Right? So how you perform your role, any role can facilitate the group process or it can hinder it. And that's true of anything. Leadership. Too much leadership can be dominating, overpowering, and overwhelming. Facilitative leadership can move things along. So any role you take on can do both. And then finally, think about your role in your own individual role in that scenario we took on. How would you describe it? Is it the same? Would what you had originally started with be an apt descriptor for what you did in your small group? What do you think? Yes? What was your original support? Would you agree, the rest of the group agree, was his role primarily as a supporter? That's what nodded people.
Yeah.
He was a hammer. Okay. So that's interesting because in a lot of ways I might, as an observer, have said that this is kind of a bit more leadership role than just supporting. It's a way of supporting. Yes, you Okay. Okay. Anybody else? Did you sort of notice yourself doing really what you? Somebody here said you were. Who said I'm a slacker? You did.
Mine doesn't apply.
It doesn't apply.
So I mean.
So what were you instead? What did you do instead?
You're a supporter.
Do all of you agree? Is that the role he took on?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a little bit more active than just flacking around.
I'm good socially, but when it comes to like actually doing work.
Okay. Okay. And so, what about here?
Unfortunately, it's true.
Did everybody kind of match what you said you were? You were like not a people person at all, and yet you're the one with the infinite knowledge and the health and the happiness.
I guess my function, this was functional.
Okay.
Again, the function of the activity as it was, as well as the potential for each person in the group to chime in. Their critique.
Would you agree?
With him? Yeah. I'd say structure is probably his strong.
Okay. Okay. Do you think in your group, was he a control freak? Well, you
He took control of the situation.
but his word was control freak. Did that feel like too much?
No. Yeah, I mean, someone had to do it.
So someone had to do it and he did it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just like control. Yeah.
Okay. Anything yet?
You call it
Was the original word that you sort of described yourself in groups, is that what you did here? Contributing, participatory, being awesome. I don't remember that as the first person picture. Okay. Okay, so you can be helpers, blockers, energizers. So those of you who said originally I'm fun, I'm entertaining, we need those people too. Rescuers, facilitators, compromisers, scapegoats. Yeah, when things go wrong, sometimes you just need someone to take the blame and someone to assign it. Evaluators, monopolizers, non-sharers, those are the ones who are just cruising through. And sometimes violators of group norms. And sometimes that can be really good, because if you've got a group norm that says just the facts, nothing else, and somebody says, are we ever going to talk about the fact that everybody sits at tables, segregated tables? Then, that may be a violation of norms, but sometimes that's necessary to do. Cultural differences have to be taken into consideration when you are looking at group work, because they will shape and change how people perceive what's going on. When you get groups together, you get all the isms together, and so issues of racism and oppression, you need to be addressing this and working through it, and they will come up in groups. They will. Safety and trust also becomes an issue because of the cultural implications. What's said, again, this is that piece between what's said and what's not said. So people might say, oh, everyone can say whatever they want here, this is great. And that's not what happens. Because people don't feel safe necessarily to say what's on their mind. They're not sure it's appropriate. They don't know if it fits the cultural rules. And by and large, in workplaces, the cultural norms do tend to dictate some of the group norms. And so if there are some members who come from cultural groups with different norms, how that affects participation, how that affects engagement, how that affects how they can say what's on their mind, or whether it's okay to say what's on your mind, or who do you say it to, all of that will come up. any group conflict, the first thing people go to often is visible differences of race or gender or so on and so forth. The piece though is that if you, again, remember conflict, expressed conflict that is addressed and worked with can lead eventually to more productive group work. If you actually listen to different cultural perspectives and allow that discomfort, you're going to actually end up with a better product at the end. A stronger group because you can withstand those forces that might tear apart other groups. All right. Questions?